Hi singers, it's Miki here with your singing tip of the week. So last week I did something unprecedented. I took the week off, which is not something that I've done since I started posting on this channel. And the reason is that I've been really busy lately. I have a lot going on with my musical life, and I wanted to not just upload anything. I wanted to stay true to the quality that you've hopefully come to expect on my channel. So I took a week off, and today I'm back. And I want to look at Mallory Bechtel. She is a young singer who is in Dear Evan Hanson. You know, she's not the only one, but there is this new wave of singers that have really changed the character of what I would expect in a musical theater singer. I think in the last decade, musical theater has become a lot cooler, and it's not your grandma's musical theater anymore. You know, not to knock old musical theater, there is a lot of really great stuff, and of course I loved Les Mis and Phantom and all those old school musicals, but there was a lot of cheesy stuff as well and some dated stuff. And I think now there's a lot more just crossover genres with like hip hop and pop and rock operas and more satire and comedy, and all of that's blending in a really cool way in musical theater. And so you're getting shows like, you know, Avenue Q and The Book of Mormon and Hamilton and In the Heights and Dear Evan Hanson and Waitress, and there's just this whole new influx of energy and a new conceptualization of what musical theater can be. And in the past, a lot of these big musical theater leading voices were very over the top or shrill or utilized a lot of vibrato and could sound very campy. And Mallory Bechtel is a wonderful example of a new style of singer. She has a really smooth voice and a great control, and she's really able to use her mixed voice throughout her entire range from top to bottom in a beautiful kind of seamless way. And I wanted to examine her because one of the questions that I get a lot is, what is mixed voice? And people have a lot of confusion around that. And one of the things that blew my mind was when I started thinking about your voice as one voice. You know, a lot of times we talk about having a distinct chest voice and a distinct head voice, and that can be really confusing. It's like, oh, you have these two distinct voices, but obviously that's not true. We're using the same machinery. We're just kind of shifting as we go throughout our range because our resonance is rising, but there's no like precise point at which you're flipping a gear or flipping a light switch and going from one technique to the other. So mixed voice is just a blend of your low and your high voice, and you should always be utilizing some amount of blend. So Mallory is a wonderful example of someone who's really mastered that art. She has the same amount of intensity throughout her entire range, and she transitions really seamlessly. So what I want to do today is I want to listen to her performance of Requiem from Dear Evan Hanson, and I want to talk a little bit about what kind of technique she's using to achieve that really smooth and seamless, beautiful mixed voice throughout her entire range. Okay, so let's take a listen to the Mallory Bechtel version of Requiem from Evan Hanson. I'm gonna link to the video in the description box below, and I'll probably do picture-in-picture as well, but just to describe it for you, they are in a recording studio. Alex Lackamore is playing a grand piano, and there's 3 other musicians. 2 of them are playing guitar, 1 is playing viola. It's a very simple, very classic, beautiful setting, and it works really well. And everybody's got a very serious, dramatic expression on their face.
Why should I play this game of pretend?
So immediately you can hear that she has this very sweet, innocent quality to her voice, which makes her perfect for playing this adolescent girl. So she starts out, why should I play this game of pretend? It's very high placement, so she naturally has a more high placement than I do, for example. I have a lower voice than her, and it sounds very effortless. And it's forward placed, but it's not super nasally. So it's not, why should I play this game of pretend, which is something that you hear a lot, that like bright, shrill tone in musical theater. This is much more open, and the resonance is really allowed to spread inside her face. It's not narrow, it's not pushed forward into that mask.
Such a great son and wonderful friend. Oh, don't the tears just pour.
Just a very pure tone.
Curl up and hide in my room. There in my bed, still sobbing tomorrow. I could give in to all of the glue.
So she does this thing that I'm hearing a lot with young singers, and it's like a little wobble in the voice. It's like a little ornament or a grace note. That's what I would call it in classical music. But she's not fully putting in like a turn or a lot of vibrato. It's just this tiny little grace note in there. So I'm going to play it for you again.
I could give in to all of the glue.
Right there. All of the gloom. So it's this tiny little grace note, but it's not a full-on ornament, and it gives it this really nice quality. It's so fast that you barely hear it as an ornament, but it's something that just like gilds the lily on the otherwise very simple melody without going over the top, without adding too much vibrato or too much spice or sauce. It's just a little tiny bit of loveliness.
Tell me what for.
Very relaxed, all of this.
Why should I have a heavy heart? Why should I start to break in pieces? Why should I go and fall apart for you?
But even though there's not a lot of intensity, she's very connected. Her chords are very connected. You're not hearing breathiness or aspiration. Why should I have a heavy heart? It's not, why should I have a heavy heart? It's not weak sounding or disconnected.
Why should I play the grieving girl and lie?
So even here, when she goes into that pre-chorus, it doesn't get breathy. It's very gentle, but it's still connected. Here, she has a very, very lovely natural vibrato on that as well. I'm gonna play that for you again. Right there. Why?
Saying that I miss you, and then my
That's the first time that she gets a little breathy. When she flips to that, my, that's the first note that she gets a little bit breathy on, but then she goes right back into that connected tone. Really lovely and amazing control, and everything sounds so smooth. And some of that might be the processing. You can do a lot with EQ after the fact, and obviously this isn't like, a live, totally untouched performance. There probably was some editing in post, but still you can tell that she's singing it in a really, really nice, pure, connected tone.
I will sing no requiem tonight.
So just to clarify, what I mean by that is if you don't have a good performance to start with, there's only so much that you can do with editing, with EQ, with compression, with reverb, with all of that. She obviously is using a wonderful mic. She's in a beautiful recording studio. They have great equipment. They probably have a very talented audio engineer who set everything up, and they might have done some EQ and editing in post. But despite all of that, you have to have a beautiful performance to begin with to end up with a really quality sounding product like this.
You were the flood that swallowed us whole.
So even now on the second verse,
The love we endlessly gave you.
not too much intensity.
You were fire.
Here she starts to build her volume.
The blaze that couldn't be tamed.
So there you start to really hear her opening up, the blaze that couldn't be tamed. You start to get more of that resonance. So she's starting to really step on the gas and add a little bit more intensity. But still, it sounds very sweet. It's not the blaze that couldn't be tamed, too intense. And it's not shrill either. It's not the blaze that couldn't be tamed. It's still very, very light and innocent sounding.
Should I have a heavy heart? Why should I say I'll keep you with me? Why should I go and fall apart for you? Why should I play the grieving girl and lie?
So here you're hearing her go for it. You're hearing that intensity, but it's still in this mixed voice. So it's, why should I play the grieving girl and lie? It's very open and relaxed. It's not, why should I play the grieving girl? And she's not doing it over the top. It sounds very, very smooth and in control. And one thing that I want you to notice when you're watching the video on this part is that she's opening her mouth really, really wide. So when she goes for those high notes, why, you're seeing everything really, really open, and you can see that her tongue is relaxed against the bottom of her mouth and her throat is really, really relaxed and open. So that's one of the things that's contributing to how smooth and relaxed and beautifully resonant her tone sounds. It doesn't sound squashed or strained at all.
Tonight, 'cause when the villains fall, the kingdoms never weep. No one lights a candle to remember.
So here comes the climax of the song.
No one wants to know, laying them down to sleep. So don't tell me that I didn't have it right. Don't tell me that it wasn't black and white.
Here it comes.
After all you put me through, don't say it wasn't true. And you are not the monster that I knew.
So on that part, she's actually flipping into her head voice, and yet she's kept her intensity so even throughout her chest voice transition over her bridge and into her head voice that you can't really tell the difference unless you're really paying attention and listening closely. So on that bridge, she does the bottom one in her chest voice. After all you've put me through, that's in her chest voice. And then don't say it wasn't true. That's like on her transition. And then she hits the top one. You were not the monster that I knew, in her head voice. But all three of those sound like they're the same volume, and there's really no apparent difference in the quality of her tone. So let me play that for you again so you can hear just how smooth that is.
Don't tell me that it wasn't black and white.
Chest voice,
You put me through,
transition,
it wasn't true. And you are not
head voice.
monster.
So there really isn't any point at which it sounds disconnected and breathy. And here comes the really beautiful, intimate ending.
I knew, 'cause I cannot play the grieving girl and lie.
It's gorgeous. And she has breathiness on this part for the first time in her performance. 'Cause and she ends that with her really, really lovely natural vibrato. And on this part, you actually see her physiology change a lot. So she's bringing it down, she's making it really intimate, and her mouth is much more closed. She's keeping the sound much more close and trapped in her mouth because she wants us to come in. She's saying something that's really more personal. She's just had this huge catharsis and the climax of the song, and she was just pouring out her emotions, and now everything is drawn in and you see it in the way that she's singing it.
Saying that I miss you and that my world
much more introspective, this part. And she doesn't even finish that sentence. My world has gone dark. She just lets it trail off as if she's kind of thinking in her head, you know, she's getting lost in her thoughts. It's really beautifully done.
I will sing no requiem. I will sing no requiem.
Very, very quiet and intimate. And I love that even though it ends on that little scat, there's no words on it. There's a surprising amount of power in that tone. She could have just hummed that and really brought it down and had it die away. But there's like a resolve in that she doesn't do that, in that it's mouth open and she's still kind of like giving us this really rich tone that holds out and has power and has a nice vibrato in the end and really is like, it almost sounds like a resolution, right? I will sing no requiem. It's not like she's defeated. She's saying, I will sing no requiem. I've thought about this. I've come to this conclusion. This is what's right for me. I'm not going to rewrite history to play some role that isn't honest to myself. I'm going to be true and tell the story as it was. So I think all of that comes through in the lyrics, in the arrangement, in the performance, and it's just the perfect package. She's got a wonderful voice. She's a great talent. So thank you so much for joining me and watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you here next week for another singing tip of the week. Until then, happy singing.